So an enabler is basically some factor that allows you to eat healthy. A barrier is some factor that stops you or blocks you or prevents you from eating healthy. So in the same way, if you've got a family who love to eat out, they love to get fast food, they love to eat junk food, that is going to act as a barrier, because that might discourage you or prevent you from eating a healthier diet. Okay, so that's basically what enablers and barriers kind of mean. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
No worries, all good. So it's important, like we've given you a few examples in this slide. Oops, how do I get rid of this? We've given you a few examples in this slide. Again, a lot of it's kind of common sense as well. So don't stress about this too much, this topic. Just like, when it's family, okay, if you've got a family that eats healthy food, like a lot of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, then that's good. If you've got a family that eats a lot of junk food and fast food, then that's bad. That's going to be a barrier, okay? Same thing with friends, okay? If your friends like to eat a lot of like Maccas and stuff when you go outside, then that would be a barrier, okay? If your friends are more into salads and smoothies and kind of those kinds of healthier foods, then that might be an enabler, okay? So each factor can act as both an enabler and a barrier. It's kind of like looking at two sides of the same coin. So income is like, it can act as a barrier if you don't have enough money to buy fresh fruits and vegetables. Okay, income can act as an enabler if you have enough money and you are able to buy fresh fruits and vegetables, and you are able to afford to cook those foods in a way that is healthy without having to just go through the drive-through at Macca's or KFC. Okay, so each of these factors, regardless of what type of factor it is, will have a positive side and a negative side. The positive side is what we call as the enabler. It enables someone to eat a healthier diet. And the negative side is what we call as a barrier. It kind of blocks or prevents someone from eating a healthier diet. Okay, any other questions? Or any other topics that you want me to go through again? Okay, yep, analysis of graphs. Yeah, we'll have a look at an example one. Let me just close this. And do we have any example ones in here? Oh, we did have an example one. Maybe we'll just use this one. Okay, so just to remind you guys, when we do data analysis, it's important to remember that there are certain components that we're looking for. So if I was going to ask you to compare data, then you would be comparing any one part of the graph with any other part of the graph. Okay, you're comparing the data for both. If we're simply asking you to identify a trend is simply looking at the data and looking at how it has changed over time. So you might say, for example, that in all age groups, the number of people who have inadequate fruit is lower than the number of people who have inadequate vegetables. Okay, so that could be an example of a trend, and then you just quote those numbers. Again, it's important for you, regardless of what kind of question we give you, it's important for you to mention the numbers. So I'll just write that down here. First of all, you need to mention the year the data was published. So if you look at the caption, you'll often find the year. In this case, it's 2017 to 2018. Okay, you need to look at what is the data showing us. To get a better idea of what the data is showing us, we can have a look at we can have a look at the caption as well. Okay, it says prevalence of inadequate fruit and vegetable intake for people aged 18 and above. So that's what the data is showing us. So this percentage here on the y-axis is showing us the prevalence. Okay, prevalence is usually measured in percentage forms. So the prevalence is basically the total number of people, or the total percentage of people who have inadequate means low or below average, okay? And inadequate fruit means low or below average fruit intake. Okay, so what this is saying, when we look at this graph, in all age groups, the amount of people who have an inadequate vegetable intake is actually a lot higher than the amount of people who have an inadequate fruit intake. What that means is that overall, people are having more deficiency for vegetables compared to fruits. okay? And this makes sense because obviously fruits are tastier, they're easier to eat on the go, okay? And so vegetables might be a little bit more difficult to eat on the go. So that's why inadequate vegetables is higher across all age groups. And that could be one example of a really obvious trend that you can discuss. So again, talking about the year, that's something you need to talk about. Another thing that you need to talk about is the actual axes. So you can't analyze a graph without talking about what's on the axis. So you will have to make some mention of age group and some mention of the percentage of prevalence, okay? So the X and Y axes need to be acknowledged or mentioned in some way. The next thing that you would need to do is you would need to look at the numbers, okay? So you can't just say, oh yeah, people aged 18 to 24 have a very high percentage of inadequate vegetable intake. You need to give me the number. So you need to say, okay, very high, approximately 96% of Australians aged 18 and above showed a inadequate vegetable intake in 2017 to 2018, as compared to about 55% of Australians who showed a inadequate fruit intake. And you can obviously use descriptive wording such as significantly higher, moderately higher, relatively lower. All of those words are important. So use the descriptive wording, and along with the descriptive wording, mention the numerical figures. So mention whatever's on the y-axis, the percentage or the life expectancy years, whatever data we're looking at, you got to mention the numerical data. Mention the numbers, essentially. Okay, so that's basically what you need to, those are the main 4 things you need to include in a question like this. And that's why most of the data analysis questions you would get would usually be worth like 3 or 4 marks, okay? Because we are looking to make sure that you are including those things. Obviously, if the data hasn't given you the year, there's no reason why you need to mention the year, but do look for the year. Don't just look at the data without reading the caption. The caption has a lot of the clues that you need to properly analyze the data, okay? So if we were gonna write a sample answer for this now, if I just clear this drawing, how am I gonna do this? Oh, I can make a text box. Well, that's kind of cool. Okay. So yeah, let's write a sample answer for this now. So basically we would first start with the year. So in 2017 to 2018, how do I make this bigger? Maybe I can't make it bigger, that's okay. In 2017 to 2018, Australians, and we're going to choose a specific age group here. So maybe if I gave you, if the question was, sorry, I'll write the question first so that we have something to look. So compare prevalence of inadequate fruit and vegetable intake for any 2 age groups shown in the graph. Okay, I won't write inadequate fruit and vegetable. Oh, you know what, we'll leave it. We'll leave it as maybe, no, it's going to be too big then. I'll just specify it to only fruit because we've already discussed the vegetable one in that example before. So just only for fruit intake for any 2 age groups in the graph. I can't make it bold, that's okay. All right, so this will be worth about 4 marks there. Okay, so that is our question now. Now, how do I draw another text box? Oh, good. Okay, so the answer now, oh, I can change the color. Whoops. Okay, I haven't used this text box before, so I'm making a lot of mistakes. Anyway, so compare the prevalence of inadequate fruit intake for any 2 age groups shown in the graph. If you get a question like this in the mini assessment or in the in any SAC or anything for that matter, you have to look at the words, okay? It says compare. Compare means you are going to be using your descriptive wording to compare, to show the similarities or differences in 2 age groups. We've specified only 2. So you do need to talk about only 2. If you talk about 4 age groups, you're not going to get extra marks for that, okay? And obviously it says prevalence of inadequate fruit intake, which means you have to compare the age groups on the x-axis with reference to the percentage of prevalence as shown on the y-axis. So an answer like this will look something like in 2017 to 2018, so this is our year. I'm not going to write that, it's pretty obvious. In 2017 to 2018, that's our year, so we've written that down now. Now, in 2017 to 2018, Australians, and now we've got to pick 2 age groups. So let's have a look at the graph and see. when you're picking two age groups, it's probably good to pick ones that are different. It is easier to describe differences in data as compared to similarities, because then you can use words like slightly higher, moderately high. But again, it's up to you. I might do age 65 to 74 with maybe age 25 to 34. Yeah, so I'm going to say Australians aged 65 to 74 had a slightly lower prevalence of inadequate fruit intake. I've got to try and determine what percentage that is. Is that about probably close to 38? Yeah, so in brackets you're at approximately 38% compared to, and then we look at 25 to 34, so that's approximately 50, 54, 55, yeah, approximately 55. So compared to Australians aged 25 to 34, whose fruit intake, whose inadequate fruit intake prevalence was at approximately 54%. Okay, so have I done everything? So I've got year, we've got the two age groups, we've got the percentages, and we've got the descriptive wording. So I think that would be okay, yeah. So again, we've got the year, so 2017 to 28. Oh, just highlights the whole thing. Well, that's no good. Okay, so in 2017 to 2018, that's the year. Okay, that will get you a mark automatically. Talking about the percentages, so you've talked about 1% of one graph there, and then you've talked about the other percentage. That's our incorporation of the numerical data. So that'll give us another point there. Using words or using descriptive wording like slightly lower, okay, that is again describing the data, looking at the data, making some kind of assertion there or assumption there about what the data looks like. We're interpreting the data essentially. So that's going to give us another point. And basically the other point is just given for the structuring of the entire response. And so essentially, because we interpreted all of this correctly, we haven't written 38 years, we've written 38%, and we've taken heed of the axes correctly, then that will give us the last mark there, and for a total of 4 marks. Okay, so is everyone clear with that? I know we've done a lot of questions like this before. It's just a matter of just having those 4 components down as your checklist. Now let me quickly jot them again, because I have a nice text box I can do instead of writing ugly handwriting. So year of data. Then we're talking about numerical data included. So you're writing down the percentages or the years, etc. Okay, whatever the y-axis is basically looking at, or the x-axis for that matter. Okay, you are basically also using descriptive wording. So that's wording such as all the things that we talked about in class is slightly lower, slightly higher, depending. You're going to look at the data and make a decision about what you're going to write accordingly. Okay, sorry, I will use a different color for this so we don't mix it up with the answer. Oh, not pink, maybe blue. Okay, slightly lower, slightly higher, significantly lower, moderately higher, blah, blah, blah. Okay, all of those words that we can use there. Okay, and the last thing we're going to do is, whoops, it's gone out of the screen. I'll have to bring it up here. Okay, and the last thing that we're going to do is we need to talk about our basically acknowledging the axis. So acknowledging and identifying the X and Y axes correctly. Okay, and what I mean by this is that, for example, some of you in the first SAC, I still remember this, is that there was a graph talking about years, like years of life, like life expectancy. And a lot of you interpreted that life expectancy as being a percentage, and you said, okay, you know, in 2018, people lived for 38% of their life. And I'm like, no, that doesn't make sense. You have to write like the number. Okay, that's just an example. But like, yeah, you have to make sure you are reading the X and the Y axis correctly, and you are identifying information from that correctly. And if you do not do that correctly, you will lose a mark for that. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 main points there that need to be included in any data analysis question that you do that is above 3 marks, essentially. If it's only 1 mark, you don't have to put in all the numerical data. You just need to give me the slightly lower, slightly higher, just the description, okay? But in most cases, those will be too easy. And we are trying to train you now for Unit 3 and 4 health, making sure that you are including all these components here. All right, is that kind of clear? Does anyone still have questions about data analysis? Because I know data analysis is something that we are continuously working on, and it's important for us, not just for this year, but for next year as well. All good?
Miss, do you have to explain like why there's a difference between the age groups or not?
Oh yeah, so in this question you wouldn't, but if this was part A of the question and then I gave you part B, and I said in part B question I wrote something like justify one reason for the comparison or the trend you mentioned in part A, or justify one reason for why inadequate vegetable intake is much higher compared to fruit, you would then write something like a reason, yeah? So if I ask you to justify or provide a reason, like explicitly, like specifically, then you would mention it, okay?
Okay, yeah.
Something like fruits are a bit more delicious, they're tastier, they're sweeter, they're easy to have on the go. You can't just have like a, you know, broccoli in your hand when you're boarding the bus. You need to have something that's more portable, okay? So yeah, that's what you would do.
Okay, makes sense, thanks.
We specifically ask, yeah. Alrighty, so any other questions about data analysis? Just remember, look at the graph properly. We're never going to give you any complicated graph. It'll either be a bar graph or something that's very easy for you to interpret or understand. Okay, it's not going to be a graph that is difficult for you to understand or a graph that has like 10 different elements to it. It will be easy for you to understand as long as you are incorporating this checklist. Okay, and this is very important. I have written this many times on the board as well. So make sure that you, whenever you do a data analysis question this year or next year, you are fulfilling these 4 types of check, like we call them, yeah, we'll call them key points there. Yeah, so like I said yesterday, the main focus will be for chapter 4, but there will be stuff from chapters 1 to 3 as well, okay? And the stuff that's in chapters 1 to 3, it's stuff that you should already know by now. So being able to identify like an example of physical health and well-being, being able to look at a case study and then link it to dimensions of health and well-being that are affected for that person. Being able to connect a topic to a health status indicator like morbidity or mortality. Okay, those are key skills. Being able to read a case study on a sociocultural factual issue, okay, and being able to then link that to other topics. So a lot of what's going to be tested for chapters 1, 2, and 3 isn't like, it's not like, it's not as in-depth as the kind of content we're going to test you for chapter 4, okay? So it's more about the key skills. Chapter 4 will be like actual content that we are testing you on. Again, because we didn't do a proper SAC for chapter 4, it was all online. And we did do chapter 4 for the majority of the online e-learning period. And it's something that we do want you to know well because you will need it for next year for Unit 3. Okay, so that's the reason we are putting a lot of content focus for chapter 4, but a lot of skills-based focus for chapters 1, 2, and 3. So practice your skills of reading case studies, practice your skills of linking back to health and well-being. So if I give you a case study about a girl who's having trouble at home and I write a lot of stuff about her, you should then be able to explain, okay, how is her physical health impacted? How is her mental health impacted? Okay, these are questions, we've done so many of these in class as well. And you've done these in your first SAC and many of you did that question very well. So I'm pretty confident that you guys will find that quite easy. But again, it's been a while since we did our first SAC and a lot has happened since then. So it'll be good for you to revise those key concepts, okay? Now, on that note, I will basically show you guys the practice things that I've put up in case I did not mention that. Okay, I'll quickly show you guys what I mean by those. Okay, so whoops, wrong page, health and human. All right, so now if we go down to, yes, to health and human, you can see I put the countdown for the mid-year assessment here. Okay, and I will put an RSVP for your mid-year assessment as well. So you can then RSVP on the day. So that will be here above the social stream. On top of that, I put some revision questions. Now under due work, if you click revision questions, you'll notice that there's a Word document there. I've put all the instructions of what you need to do. So you download that document there, you open it up, and then you do the questions. Okay, now this will be a very good revision for you. It has some multiple choice. Like I said, you will have multiple choice in your SAC as well. In your mid-year assessment. It's got some questions as well, some practice questions that will be good for you to do on nutrition. You've got, again, links to physical health and well-being, and you've got another graph here. Okay, so do this, and you will find there's some case studies there. This will be a very good, another data analysis. So if you do this, I want you to fill in all the answers, blah, 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 save it to your desktop. And then what I want you to do is you come back to the due work, then you click create submission. I'm pretty sure all of you know how to do this. And then you're going to basically attach the Word document with all your answers in it and submit. And if you do that, then I can mark that and give you some feedback through the school box, okay? Those of you who do this, you will definitely be in a better place to do the mid-year assessment than those of you who don't. So I do strongly recommend that you do this. I'm not going to give you any other extra practice materials because I don't want to overwhelm you, and I don't want to, make it compulsory for everyone to submit that and then cause extra stress for everyone. It's only one thing that I've put up for HHD. You do this and you will be pretty much good in terms of your key skills for the actual assessment. Okay, the chapters for the mid-year assessment are chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. Put some extra special focus on chapter 4, but put some extra special focus for the skills that you need from chapters 1, 2, and 3. And those are the skills of reading case studies. Those are the skills of connecting back to dimensions of health and well-being. And those are the skills of, connecting back to indicators such as health status, as well as your data analysis skills, which we just looked at on this slide here. Okay? It's gonna be easy, guys. It's not gonna be difficult. Don't stress. Just make sure that you are pretty well acquainted with the content from chapter 4 and the key skills from chapters 1, 2, and 3. And obviously, we do have multiple choice as well in the assessment, mid-year assessment. So that should take out a bit of stress. For some of you as well. Okay. All right. What other topics do you guys need help with?
Miss, what are the chapters?
I told you, chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4.
1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and put extra special focus on chapter 4. Okay, content-wise. Okay, what other questions? Any other topics or any other key skills that you guys are still confused about that you would need some extra, like looking into or something like that?
Miss?
Yeah?
Can you do a case study?
Yeah, we'll do a case, like not a data analysis, yeah? Just like a case study.
Yeah.
I'll open one up. It might be one we've already done, but anyway, I'm pretty sure we've done that early on, so we would have forgotten by now. Anyway, we'll open that up. So just give me 1 second. Let me find one. Okay, cool. So I will share this screen with you now. Yes, Word document. Okay, share. Alrighty, so now we've got a sample question here, which we did at the beginning of the year. So this is a case study, just an example of a case study, similar to one you might get on the mid-year assessment. So Lena is 17 years old and is an active member of her school's debating team. She enjoys debating and has formed many good friendships and with members of her team. Now, however, as a result of her parents' recent divorce, she has been feeling very upset and has stopped attending the debating training sessions. Her friends have tried to reach out to her, but she ignores their calls and messages. The stress has started getting to Lena and she has fallen behind in her schoolwork as well. 2 days ago, Lena checked into the doctors with symptoms of a cold and an intense headache. And this is a big one. This is a question where we're asking you to identify all 5 dimensions. Now, obviously, as your mid-year assessment is not going to be so long, we might not necessarily ask you to talk about all 5. We might ask you for specific ones for maybe 2 or 3, but not all 5, okay? But this is an example that really incorporates all 5 into it. Okay, so it says outline how the 5 dimensions of health and well-being are being demonstrated in Lena's scenario. So remember, another key word you want to look out for in questions where you are asked to discuss the different dimensions is interrelationships. So if I ask you to discuss the interrelationships between the dimensions of health and well-being in Lena's scenario, it's the same kind of question. All we're really asking you to do is talk about how those 5 dimensions of health and well-being are demonstrated and are connected in Lena's scenario. So let's have a look at a sample answer now. And we did this as a class as well. Some of you might even have the paper in your folder somewhere. So I'll just go down to the answer. Okay, so the answer is Lena is demonstrating poor physical health and well-being as she has a cold and intense headache, okay? And this means her immune system has weakened. So I'm linking it to a bodily system. In this case, I'm linking it to the immune system, okay? The quoted information here is just information I took directly from the case study, and I just quoted that, okay? Like I told you, it's really good for you guys to get into the habit of doing this. You're not going to lose marks if you don't quote it in. As long as you mention something about her having a headache or cold, it's fine. But I like to quote it in because it shows that you are directly integrating that information into your answer. And it just looks a little bit more seamless as compared to just writing it separately. Okay. She's also showing poor mental health and well-being as her parents' divorce has caused her to feel stressed. Furthermore, so you're going to use linking words. You're not just going to write these in dot points, but you are going to use linking words like furthermore, consequently, as a result of this, in addition to this. Okay, all those linking words should be there to make your answer flow better. So anyway, where was I? She's also showing poor mental health and well-being as her parents' divorce has caused her to feel stressed. We know that stress is one of our mental health concepts. Furthermore, she's experiencing decreased emotional health and well-being as she's feeling upset. Remember, you can't write feeling depressed here because depression is not an emotion. Depression is a mental state. Okay, some of you still make that mistake, so just be careful that you know that emotions are to do with our actual emotional expressions. Okay, the things you feel, like you feel sad, you feel happy, you feel angry. Okay, those are our emotional feelings. Okay. In addition to this, Lena's social health and well-being is being impacted through her not interacting with her friends. Okay, not interacting is the key word here, which connects to our social health and well-being. Okay, not interacting through answering her friends' calls. And finally, although Lena does have good spiritual health and well-being before this whole situation, so she used to be an active member of the school's debating team, so she was part of some community group there that shared the same values and interests as her. As a result of the situation she's gone through, she has now experienced decline in spiritual health and well-being, or decreased spiritual health and well-being. And this can be seen in the scenario as she's no longer attending the debating training sessions. Okay, she might feel like she has less hope for the future. Okay, she might feel like there's no purpose of going. So I've added that in as well there to further indicate how her spiritual health and well-being, which used to be good, has now actually experienced some kind of a negative impact or decline as well. Okay, so that's basically for 5 marks. Obviously, depending on how much we ask you, you would write according to that. Is that clear? Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay, so this is like an example of a key skill of linking back to health and well-being, okay? Again, if I give you another scenario just about someone who's, who has a poor income, okay, that would then be from chapter 3. That would be a case study from chapter 3. And then if I ask you to link back to how the poor income is affecting the health and well-being in terms of 3 dimensions, you're just going to do the same thing. You're going to look at the case study or the scenario, and you're just going to connect it back to the concepts, okay, using the information in the case study and using your own knowledge of what physical health and well-being is about, mental health, emotional health, etc., etc. So again, like I said, chapters 1, 2, and 3, it's not so much blindly memorizing the content and definitions, but it's also mostly about those key skills there. Okay. So yeah, and this scenario should be on your Schoolbox page as well. I've uploaded it under files a while ago. So yeah, it's under Lena H&W sample answer. It's under the files for 2020. It should be there. Alrighty. So what other questions do we have? Oh, oh my God, it's already 11:48. Wow, time flies. Okay, any other questions we have then? No? All good? Alrighty. Okay, in that case, I'm not going to make you guys stay here over time. I'm just going to tell you guys that, yeah, if you have any other questions, just directly email me. Try and have a go at those revision questions, which I just showed you before. They will be very helpful for you. There is a due date for that, so make sure that if you are going to submit it before the due date. And if you have any other questions, just email me directly. Yeah. Okay. And obviously keep checking back on the HHD Schoolbox page in case there is an update or there's something that I need to communicate to all of you. The best way to do it will be through the Schoolbox. So check that social stream and check the page frequently in case there's updates. Alrighty, so yeah, enjoy the rest of your week. Have a nice Eid. And yeah, if you have any questions, let me know through email or through the Schoolbox. Preferably email because I check that more frequently.
Miss,
Bye everybody. Yes.
do we have to, like, you know, from last week's work,